Blog Talk Radio.
Well, it is a beautiful, from what I hear, 61 degrees here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it seems as though it has been 2 weeks since I've been on the air, if not more than that, which is quite disappointing. I miss my show very, very much. So welcome, everybody. I'm long overdue for having a show. I apologize for that. To those of you who are on social media, you already follow me, so you're already quite aware of the fact that I have been living and filming the project from hell, which is why I obviously have not been doing my radio show. I mean, I think the TV series has literally taken mine and Michael's life and literally kidnapped us for the last 2 months. It's been a bit of insanity. Happy to report, again, if you were on social media, you see all of my updates with all of my various ventures, so you know that it's coming to a close and we're actually finishing filming on Thursday. Oh, my God, I can't be happier, which means for the month of April, you'll be getting a chance to hear 9 radio shows, if not more, from me. I'm sure you saw our next magazine issue is coming out at the end of April, actually the last Wednesday of the month, including a Mother's Day gift guide, which I'm super excited about. For those of you who missed it, we are hosting Art is Alive, I'm okay, Bedford Falls Film Festival, which is a celebration of all black and white cinema, which we are hosting April 18th from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's happening live here in Wisconsin, as well as being done, well, basically it's a hybrid, which means that we're also doing it, of course, virtually as well, because we have a number of different international filmmakers who are in attendance. So if you go up and look at bedfordfallsfilmfestival.weebly.com or visit Film Freeway, you will see a list of all of our films, including this year we're going to be having vendors along with a writer workshop, and I'm super, super excited about so many of these movies are wonderful. So please, if you can make it, whether it's live or virtually, please do so. Again, tickets are $5 per block, otherwise $10 for an entire day pass. On the other side of the fence, Art is Alive Film Festival, my main gig, of course, April 13th is my regular deadline, so the price goes up. So don't forget, features and shorts up to 90 minutes of all genres, along with screenplays up to 110 pages, along with youth films, web TV series up to 60 minutes. Submit. Film Freeway, go to Art is Alive Film Festival. Otherwise, artisalivefilmfestival.weebly.com. The only other update I want to provide real quickly is I know some of you are waiting for my newsletter. The First Amendment can you see what happens when I'm not on the radio? Let's try this again. The First Amendment Advocate, which is my new newsletter. Hopefully by the end of April, that will be coming out as well. I did set up a Facebook page. There is no website as of yet, so stay tuned as far as that stuff goes. And then for my various film projects, we'll have an update on that this afternoon. So super, super excited to announce some of this stuff. It'll be so fun to be on the receiving end, to be able to promote my own films versus the one who is constantly screening everybody else's. So I'm really excited about that. So without further ado, you don't want to listen to me talk anymore because I'm not interested. Let's get the doctor on the phone and start speaking to Kristy about all the super cool things that the Soul Sisters paranormal people do. So hold on one second. Let's get her on the line. Hi, Kristy.
Hi, Cindy. How are you doing today? I'm great.
Well,
thanks.
You can see I'm a little flustered. There's so much going on.
Well,
and when you're not on the radio
like
for like a month, it's nuts. It's just I have so much to get caught up on. But I'm so glad, and thank you so much for your patience. I've had to prolong our interview along with about 75 others just to get filming done. But I'm glad you're here. So thank you so much. It's a beautiful day, and I have tons to talk about. First of all, I'm going to jump around a bit. So we're going to talk about yourself as well as the business itself and some of the things that you do, if it's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. The first thing is, and I'm not stupid by any means whatsoever, but I did research you because I am a journalist. So one of the first things I want to talk about is your background, because I know that you work an awful lot with what we call biometrics. Like, for instance, you had worked for a biometric credentialing company and in biometric clearances. And all I'm asking myself is, what the hell is biometric anything? Not that I'm stupid, but most people like me are like, what? What? Huh? So tell us a bit about this fascinating biometric stuff. What is that all? What does that mean? What is that?
Biometrics is actually anything that is a physical characteristic of you that is unique to you that can be used to identify you as a person. So fingerprints, iris imaging, facial recognition, those are things that we call biometrics. So to your point, yes, my background is actually in biometrics for aviation access control, and my PhD is in public administration with an emphasis on criminal justice. So after 9/11, that's when I really started to delve into aviation security and how biometrics could be used to really help secure that industry. So that's how I kind of got into that realm.
Oh, very, very cool. Now, of course, most people would assume, like, for instance, I'm in entertainment, so everybody automatically assumes certain things about myself. So am I to gather, like most people who approach you or meet you, first of all, you have a doctor title, which means you're highly intelligent and very well schooled. Number two, I'm going to guess that means most people think you're intensely serious. I've seen your Facebook, so I know otherwise. But, you know, seriously, I mean, is there a stigma that comes along with scientists, if you will? Do you know what I mean? Because you're obviously, like I said, very, very intelligent person. So how are you different from your professional persona?
Well, I think it really kind of delves into the fact that we do have some different hobbies and stuff as well, aside from, you know, the academic world, i.e. the paranormal investigations that we do. So, you know, when we use that academic title of doctor, yes, we do get held to a higher standard. But on the flip side, that to your point on the Facebook page, you know, we are just fun-loving individuals. You know, we really approach things from a more research-based approach, if you will, and that's really what kind of leads us into the paranormal investigation realm as well, because that was something that we wanted to see if we could bring a scientific aspect to an industry that's really seen as a subculture. And so that's really, you know, how we've married the two with what we do, the PhD and the paranormal investigations.
I gotcha. Now, when you first started off going to school, of course, how do you go from one direction to another? Because it kind of seems like what you studied is relative, but not 100%. Do you know what I'm talking about? So what made you want to go in that direction? And, you know, clearly this is not something that everybody under the sun does. So what makes you, and I'm not questioning you whatsoever, but why are you qualified to do this? Do you know what I mean? Like, why you?
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. So, and I'll say us because I have a twin sister and we have the same degrees. So when we were in college, we started with criminal justice. Our family, we have some family members that are in law enforcement. So we started with criminal justice and we received a master's degree in criminal justice. And then the University of Central Florida essentially said, if you continue with your PhD in public affairs, we'd like you to do some research for us and we'll kind of help you advance in the PhD world, which we did. We did some studies on prostitution and drugs in the Central Florida area, the Central Florida HIDA area. And so then it just really kind of propelled into that. And then after, like I said, after 9/11, my focus really shifted to aviation security and then again back to biometrics. So how we got into the paranormal investigations, now let me just preface this by saying this is not our full-time jobs. You know, this is not something that we don't get funded for this. This is all a self-funded endeavor for us. But when we started paranormal investigations, we really thought it was something that we could take our academic background along with that criminal justice background and see if we could apply some of the techniques that we learned in college to, again, an industry or a field that was, in our minds, somewhat lacking in the scientific approach. You know, anybody can go out and go into a cemetery or an abandoned place and say, well, I'm going to find a ghost. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to see if we could account for environmental factors, light pollution, noise pollution, those type of things to explain what other people were seeing. And then once we controlled for that, what we were left with is what we call unexplainable. And so that's how we really kind of married the academic background with, again, this industry that we felt was somewhat lacking in that scientific approach.
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you mean there. Got it. And, of course, obviously, when you're dealing with something along these lines, I note, obviously, for those that are listening in, you founded this with, of course, your sisters as well as two female friends. So it's all primarily female-based, which is absolutely lovely. We don't get enough of that, in my personal opinion. However, with the study you're in, some might say, you know, you probably need a fellow or two. You know, there's equipment. There's all sorts of things that go into this that would make your life a lot easier with a fellow or two or three. Any thoughts on expanding this out, meaning to include the boys of the group, or is this really going to be the all-female founder thing?
this is actually going to be an all-female team. Now we've taken males that are guest investigators. We've had collaborations with some teams that are males. But for us, it is one of those things that, to your point, there is a lack of female-only teams in this community, and it's something that we felt very strongly about. And then again, to bring in that scientific element, not to say that we're better than any other team or to disparage any other team, but all 5 of us, when we started this, we all have advanced degrees. So I've got a PhD, my twin has a PhD, we've got 2 JDs and a master's holder. So it was really based on that scientific approach. And so to your question, it is something that we feel keeping that female only team format really works for us. Our mom really taught us to be strong women, so it's one of those things that we don't really need men in our lives to do what we want to do. But we are very aware of our surroundings when we go to these locations. We always have protection. We all are licensed to carry handguns, so we have that. And it's one of those things where we are strong women, and we've been pretty secure in our beliefs in what we do.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Well, we have to ask the obvious, because I've had other, like I've had a husband and wife team come on here. I've had family members come on who, of course, work together. So some of us want to ask the obvious question, which is, don't even tell me that you and your sisters get along just fine. Because I'm like, you imagine if they have to go out to work, you guys go somewhere and you're fighting. So is it always bliss? Or are you like, okay, we have to hide this battle right now because we have to go and find this paranormal stuff? You know what I'm saying?
And that's a great question. My sisters are my best friends, and especially my twin. She and I, we have a very close bond, and we've always had that bond. The main thing that we really kind of quarrel about on these investigations is who controls the radio dial. That's really our biggest quarrel that we get into. But when we go on these investigations, it actually started as a girls' trip. My sisters and I, we live in different parts of the country, and we would routinely get together and have these weekends in different cities and just have a fun experience. And so in 2013, we got the opportunity to actually conduct our own paranormal investigation at the West Virginia State Penitentiary. And after that, it was one of those things where we just really wanted to continue to have these girls' trips, but then our focus shifted to, we wanted to visit historic locations and couple that with a paranormal investigation and really form Soul Sisters Paranormal. So, back to your original question, for the most part, it is bliss. It's something that we all feel very strongly about, and we've really developed this technique that, we all just really get along with what we do. And because we're all in it for the historical research as well as that paranormal investigation research.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Well, and the other thing, too, is when people hear the word twin sister, obviously that means we, of course, know that you look alike. I'm guessing that you have a bond that is very seriously tight. But if I were to ask you what's the main difference between the two of you, what would you tell me?
Jenny is extremely artistic, and I cannot draw a stick figure. We're both very. So that's the main difference. We've always been individuals. My parents did a great job of instilling in us that yes, we're twins, but we're both individual people. And so while we're extremely close, we do have our own personalities. And but I think we really complement each other. And like I said, it's one of those things to go through life with your best friend and your twin sister. It's really something that I can't put into words. It's just an amazing blessing to be able to do that on a daily basis.
Oh, I bet. Absolutely. Well, and the cool thing is that you're always discovering new things. You work in a realm, just like myself, of course, where you're always meeting different people, going to different places, finding out things you didn't know before. And, of course, we'll get into the obvious coolest parts of your job. But I am curious to ask you, I did note that I did a little research on this. We all, of course, I think are fascinated by the paranormal activities, period, in general, no matter how they happen and where. Now, there are some psychologists that talk about the fact that paranormal activities or people that experience paranormal sightings, things along those lines, that it has a great deal to do with things such as faulty brain activity or they're trying to kind of protect themselves from some of the harsh realities of the world. Could you talk about that a bit for me? Because obviously, of course, how much of this is actual truth? Because most of us that think about sightings of this sort would never think, well, wait, it's got to be something misfiring in my brain. Do you know what I mean? there wouldn't be a normal correlation, I think, between brain activity and paranormal, or should it be?
And you're absolutely right, and that is a prevailing theory that is around the paranormal community, is that people actually, quote unquote, create their own hauntings. So, for example, when you go to a location and you see an apparition, it is something that you're, in that moment believing so strongly in that it is something that you've conjured up in your mind or you've created in your mind. And because of that belief, you actually end up seeing it. So there is, that theory that is out there. And that's not to disparage anybody that believes that theory, but with the locations that we've gone to, and again, because we use that scientific research method, we set up cameras, we set up voice recorders, and those pieces of equipment are really what is capturing what we're finding on our team. So, for example, when we capture a shadow figure, or we're in a location and I'm capturing a man's voice on a voice recorder, those are things that I can't explain, and I certainly didn't make up in my mind. For us, we're actually trying to put forth evidence of those things that are to us unexplainable. So while there is some theory behind the fact that we're creating our own hauntings, we're actually documenting the fact that things are beyond our control and understanding are actually occurring out there.
Oh, you bet. Well, and the scary thing, too, is that I've been told by many that the brain is the most powerful part of your body. So, of course, your brain can convince you of about 8,000 different things that are going on. And as we all know, not everyone embraces paranormal activity to begin with. So it can be a frightening experience. There are some that say, okay, we've gone through these things, witnessed things, recorded things, etc. And for some, it's very calming. But is it fair to say that for a whole other percentage of people, it's almost something that's too frightening for them to even fathom?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There is that subset of the population that don't even want to think about it. But, when you really start thinking about life and, death, it is something that a majority of the people believe that there is an afterlife, right? That something is going to happen after we die. And so for us, it is one of those things that we're trying to find those answers. I don't think that in my lifetime, or probably anybody's lifetime, the correct answer will be had, but at least we're putting forth some evidence that there is something after, right? That life continues, that something is going on past when we close our eyes in death. And so, yes, to a lot of people, it is absolutely frightening. But what I can say is that we've been all over the country doing this, and to us, we have never found anything that is malicious or demonic or evil that we've contacted or been in contact with, that has communicated with us. And so I think that's what we're trying to do in the videos and the episodes that we produce. It's to showcase that, when you're looking at some of these TV shows in popular media now, their entire job is to sensationalize, to get advertisements, right? But what we're trying to do is say, hey, this isn't scary. It doesn't have to be scary if you go in, with the mindset of trying to find something, what is actually occurring, if that makes sense. So again, back to your original question, it's nothing, and at least for us, it has not been anything that's scary or demonic that we've faced so far.
Oh, how lovely is that? And that's wonderful to hear, of course, too, because as we all know, for those of you that are listening in that have, for whatever reason, ever heard, or not ever heard, I should say, of the word or term paranormal, what we're talking about is any experience that lies outside of the range of normal experience or scientific explanation, of course. So there could be many layers to this, obviously, of course. I know that you have stated, and I'm curious to ask this as well, I know that you don't perform things such as house cleansing or anything relative to that, and that surprised me because most people that obviously deal with the paranormal, that's one thing that they do. Is there a specified reason why that's an area that you don't work in? And, of course, if you can even answer this, how does one know if that's something that they need?
Well, let me just kind of back up to answer this. So we actually perform two types of investigations. The first type are what we call partial investigations. So this is where our team will go to, Hales Bar Dam or Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, those locations that actually have or are open to paranormal tours, to paranormal investigators. And so when we go to, and that's the first one. And then the second type of investigation is when a private business owner or a private homeowner calls us in to investigate their home. Now, for the first type of investigation, those commercial locations, when we go and we actually find evidence of paranormal activity or spirit communication, we don't own those locations. So for us, we feel that it is not right to try to cross over a spirit that's there or, try to tell a spirit that it's time to move on because we don't own it. That's not our position as investigators to do. When we go to a residence or a business, we have found instances where homeowners say that I don't like living with this spirit, I don't like living with this entity, and in those cases, we'll call in a priest or a demonologist or somebody who is more qualified to do that. And for us, that's just not one of our qualifications. We don't feel that we want to try to move a spirit on or assist them to whatever's next because that's just really not what we've been trained to do. So that's the reason why we don't perform those services.
That makes sense, of course, too. I also note that typically a lot of the things that you've done in the past have involved overnight investigations. So, again, my brain was thinking, and I thought to myself, now, is that enough time sometimes? Because as we all know, in any field or occupation, not everything goes lickety-split. We show up, and overnight, all of a sudden, boom. So how successful are you using the overnight rationale versus, camping out for a weekend per se?
Well, there have been some investigations where we had, a weekend stay. But for us, we've actually been pretty fortunate. I'd say in about 80% of the locations that we go to, we've captured something that we just can't explain, whether it be a voice, whether it be a shadow figure, whether it be footsteps or door slams or an object moving across the room. Those are things, again, that we can't explain. And like I said, about 80% of the time, we're very successful in that. And I think it also, that success rate, I think, goes back to the fact that we're an all-female team. I think that we go in as females. I think we have a sense of empathy where males probably don't have the empathy that a female does. And so we legitimately go in and want to tell the story of any spirit that may be there. And we go in with that mindset, and that's the legitimate reason why we're there. So because of that, I think we've been very successful in finding things that we can't explain. Now, when we go somewhere and we don't find anything, it's not, we're not going to classify it as not haunted or not paranormally active. We just say that it's not our night, but it just, it's one of those things where we just couldn't find anything that we couldn't explain. So for the times that we've been there, for us, it's been one of those things where we've been pretty successful.
Oh, very cool is that. Well, and of course, when you say successful, does that mean that you go in and you find something or you can explain this? Because, of course, to those listening in, you have a three-part job. First of all, you decide where you're going to visit, obviously. Then you go and you basically summarize the historical narrative to it. And then, of course, you report any paranormal evidence. So that's a three-step process here. So when you say success, does that mean that how do you rate success in your field? Is it just that you have evidence that supports that there is someone or something there, or can you talk a bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, success for us means going to a historical location and being able to have that very unique tactile experience with that historical location. So not many people can say that they've stayed the night in a lighthouse or stayed the night in a Revolutionary War fort or a maximum security prison, but we can say that we've done that. So to be able to go to those locations and tell the historical narrative of those locations and really present that to our audience, that's the first thing for us that we label as successful. And we bring the audience along with us on that experience through our episodes. Now, the second part of that success is finding those things that, again, we cannot explain. While we're in a Civil War hospital, we're capturing a child's voice or a man's voice, or, we're in a Revolutionary War fort and we're seeing shadow figures walk across our cameras. That's what we would call a successful night in the paranormal community. Again, finding those things that we just couldn't explain and that we still can't explain while we were there and after we've done our investigation. So those are the two ratings for us that we consider as successful.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes perfect sense to me, of course. I took a perusal to see some of the former places, like you had mentioned, of course. You go to places such as penitentiaries, the asylum, the murder house, et cetera, just a slew of different ones. And all I could think about was, oh, my God, how the hell are you not scared even before you get there? I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of these places are like, here's your welcome mat. Come on in. It's beautiful and it's not dingy and everybody's really nice here. Who does this? I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Like, you know, why? You know what I mean? Again, with the why, like, that doesn't sound welcoming. It's just frightening, period. So, yeah, I mean, aren't you terrified out of the gate?
You know, for us, we're really not. And to your point, we have been to some of the most quote unquote haunted locations in the country. And for us, It's absolutely fascinating. You know, we started this growing up. We watched the popular television shows, you know, Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters and such. And we would ask ourselves, you know, why aren't they asking these questions? Why didn't they set up cameras here? Why didn't they stay longer in this location? And so when we had the opportunity to go on our first paranormal investigation, and we took it and we found such what we considered compelling, unexplainable evidence at that location, it really just started the wheels turning as to how can we progress this essentially a paranormal community. How can we progress this community? And we decided to do that by, again, forming Soul Sisters Paranormal and really trying to elevate as best that we could, elevate that community in a professional light. So example, like I said before, we use that academic background. We really try to bring out a professional look and feel to our videos and just our appearance in general. And so for us, when we go to these locations, it really is that sense of exploration to have that history or that experience with these historical locations that we've researched or, you know, that we've read about in textbooks, and to be able to go into them and first have that experience, that is just incredible. And then, you know, when you walk in there and you set up the equipment and you really start delving into the investigation, it's more, again, that sense of exploration rather than terror. I can honestly say that we've never run out of a location screaming. We've never, walked out the door and said, we'll never go back to that place because it was so frightening. To us, it's a fascinating experience every time we go to a location.
That just blows my mind away, too. Well, and the other thing I noticed is, and again, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, like here, for instance, we have our own, you know, like the cigar bar they say is haunted. But ironically, I would have thought one of the things on your list for sure would have been like hotels. I mean, hello, The Shining. I mean, I get it, it's fictional. But you know what I mean? Like the Pfister Hotel here is said to be haunted, et cetera. So, I mean, is that something like down the road, are you thinking to yourself, all right, well, we'll change it up a little bit and maybe go to traditional places or places where it's been known? You know what I'm saying? Change it up a bit?
Oh, absolutely. And we've experienced hotels. I mean, we went to the Exchange Hotel in Gordonsville, Virginia, which was a Civil War hospital, and then transformed back into a hotel. The Grand Old Lady Hotel in Sylva, North Carolina was absolutely fascinating. And this was a hotel that was built in 1905 as part of a railroad line stop through Sylva. And that was actually a location that was just incredible with paranormal activity. We went there during the off season, and we were able to get the entire hotel to ourselves. It was 3 stories, has 100 rooms in it, and it really has that 1905 feel. And there was 3 of us in there that night. It was myself, my twin sister, and Miranda Young from Ghost Biker Explorations. We had collaborated with her on that investigation, and we found very compelling evidence in there. So, to your point, hotels are something that we absolutely relish going into. The problem is with most of hotels, it's very hard to get them in a private setting. So if you go into a hotel and all the rooms are occupied, it's hard for us to say, well, this is paranormal if you've got somebody in the next room that's making noise or watching television. So we've been to several hotels. We've been to other locations such as bars and, again, the St. Augustine Lighthouse. So it really does run the gamut of the places that we've gone.
It's very, very cool. Absolutely. Well, the next thing I want to ask you about is very recently I note that you were just at Screamfest. So my guess would be that oftentimes you get invited to places along those lines, as far as, for one, these different sorts of festivals that are more horror relative. I didn't note, or I couldn't find it in my research, Do you guys ever go to like the horror film festivals? Like my girlfriend runs Shriek Fest, things like that, or even more. I would have thought maybe even psychic fairs. I mean, I know it's not the exact same thing, but do you know what I mean? Do you ever get invites like that?
We do. We've been to several different what are called paracons, so paranormal conventions. So we've been invited to speak at those, and we've actually got 3 on the docket this year. As far as film festivals go, you know, we would love to get some of our episodes in something like that. But, you know, because this is all self-produced and honestly, all of the editing and producing of our videos is self-taught. You know, for us, it's one of those things that initially I've lacked the confidence to even approach a film festival or something like that. But it is something that we would absolutely enjoy being a part of. But yeah, going and speaking, we'll be speaking in several, like I said, paracons this coming year. We'll be speaking for Arkansas State University at their symposium as well. So we're really welcome to any opportunities that present itself, such as those.
Very nice. Now, it's ironic, and I also brought up the psychic part just because of the fact, and nobody would know this except for my partner, but literally I was talking about this interview last night to Michael. We were sitting at home. Not even 2 minutes later, I got an email from this young lady on the other end of my phone right now. Within 2 minutes of my talking about your interview, ironically, she happened to be emailing me when I was thinking about her. That's a psychic thing. I know, I get it. But I just thought it was kind of creepy, weird in a good way. I was like, did she know I was thinking about her? Then I started freaking out a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. That's a little weird. Now, I want to talk about your partnership because I think this is so badass, because I see that you partnered up with Ghost Biker Explorations. So twofold question. Yes. I'd like you to talk a bit about how you got aligned with her, and more importantly, tell the folks a bit about what you do together. Do you film together? Have you work together, et cetera? Tell us a bit more.
So we, in the paranormal community, there are other teams such as ourselves that really go out and do these paranormal investigations. There's some that are weekend warriors, and there are some that, you know, this really has become a staple in their lives. And so when we first started doing this, we wanted to look at those teams that were kind of aligned with what our goal was. And so our first and foremost goal, like I said before, was to really get a historical narrative out and document that historical narrative with or without paranormal evidence. And so really putting together that historical documentary and coupling that with more of a reality TV feel, right? This is how we do an investigation. So when we were looking at those other teams, Ghost Biker Explorations was one that really jumped to the forefront because of the way Miranda films, because of the fact that she does her historical research before she films, and she really puts that historical framework first before the paranormal investigation part. So I reached out to her a couple of years ago, and we actually just hit it off as friends. And after about 3 months of just communicating via email, she and I met in North Carolina and actually did an investigation together. We conducted an investigation, and then we put together a film regarding that investigation at Henry River Mill Village. And so after that, it just became such a great working relationship that anytime, you know, we want to collaborate with another team, you know, Miranda of Ghost Biker is the first person that we call. And so it's just a great working relationship, again, because our ideologies really align with what we're doing. There's been other teams that we've collaborated with. There'll be other teams that we'll collaborate with this coming year at different locations, but Miranda is one that we just truly admire for what she's done.
Very, very nice. And the fact that she was on a motorcycle, so impressive, folks, because I, of course, ride on the back of a Harley, or I should say Suzuki at this point, but I'm like, how cool is that? I'm like, that is awesome. I have to know this woman. She'll make a great interview. I'm sure I will reach out at some point in time. So thank you for the lead on that. Just, you know, researching you, I found her. It's very, very cool. I see that there is talk about an upcoming book. What's going on with that?
This is something that is in the works. We really want to put out, you know, just a deeper narrative, a deeper dive into what we actually do as investigators, and put that in written form and really highlight some of these locations in a broader narrative than what we can do on the videos. You know, the videos really give an outline view, but we really want to go into a more detailed narrative of these locations. You know, we try to keep our videos and our episodes between 20 and 40 minutes long because, you know, we don't want to overwhelm our viewers.
Right.
But so a book will allow us to get more in detail and more in depth into what we actually do. So right now it's just a lot of chapters in a spiral notebook, but eventually we will write that and publish that.
Very cool. Okay, yeah, I didn't want to forget about asking that, of course. And to those of you that don't know, they, of course, if you visit their website, I see merchandise, which is, of course, anytime somebody says the word self-funded, that means we've got to sell some stuff and some swag. So they've got shirts, they've got sweatshirts, they've got the masks and the stickers. But I have to ask, so that badass skull that you have, oh, my God. So talk to me a bit about the logo. Tell everybody what your logo looks like and who came up with that, because that is so cool.
I actually came up with that. I really wanted something that kind of represented our team in a different way. So it is a sugar skull, and it's very colorful. And I went to a tattoo artist, and he and I sat down and designed it. I wanted different aspects and different elements that I wanted represented on that skull. So it's got keyholes for the eyes, and that represents, our explorations and our investigations. It has the cross because we all are religious. We're Christian-based. It has hearts in it for love and light. And then we've got the wings to give it a little bit of a feminine flair. And then we have the halo that's a little bit askew because, none of us are perfect. And so it just really has those elements that I wanted in there to kind of represent who we are. So that I did design that, and we had a tattoo artist down here in Orlando help me design it.
That is so very cool. I kind of figured that. And of course, for those of us that ride, we all know that sugar skulls are like a huge thing. So I was like, this couldn't be any more perfect as far as that goes. I took a note here, and I see that you slimmed the team down a bit in 2020. Kind of surprised me, I won't lie. I mean, I understand practicality or whatever, but this does not seem like an exact science, if you will, or an exact study where less is better. So I'm just curious, is it a challenge at all, or does it make it even more difficult for you to do this dynamic job that you do because you have less people?
It really doesn't. We had to do that really for logistic purposes. Michelle, our younger sister, she ended up getting a promotion at work, and then Cara ended up moving out to Colorado, and Kim had a grandbaby. So those three team members really kind of had to take a step back at the end of 2019, moving into 2020. And so it was really more for logistic reasons than anything else. Now, they'll come with us as guest investigators on the locations that they can attend and come to. But it's just a lot easier for Jenny and I, based on the jobs, or real life jobs, to really move into a two-man format. So it really isn't anything that is more difficult. It takes us a little bit more time to set up our equipment, and then obviously a little bit more time to go through the audio and video footage that we capture during the investigations. But it's one of those things that we really have down to a science now. It's nothing that is difficult per se. It's just a little bit more time consuming.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and the other thing, too, is, of course, I see that you've gone the gamut here. I mean, at present, like I said, I counted 11 states that you've been to thus far. I imagine that net is going to get even wider, of course. So it keeps you quite busy. I'm interested, did you pick those, or did they pick you, so to speak? Meaning, why Texas and not going to, let's say, for instance, California? You know what I'm saying? Why these particular states? Were you soliciting them, or are they soliciting you?
A little bit of both. We've had locations call us and say, hey, can you come in and investigate this for us? Or we'd like to invite you to investigate. So, for example, we'll actually be in Milwaukee in May, and the Shakers Bar actually contacted us and said, hey, can you please come and investigate our location? So we'll be there in May. As far as the other locations, again, it really comes down to logistics. When they have an availability that we can jump on, when Jenny can take vacation time and stuff like that. So most of it is logistics, and then honestly just the travel of getting out there. So we have to really kind of look at maps and all of that, because all of our equipment we have to take by car. And so the driving from Florida to, Iowa or California or something like that, it really is time consuming. So like to answer your question, it really is both. We'll get called in, or we'll just pick locations and go.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And they're coming to my home state. Oh, my God, I'm so excited. Oh, my God, that's so exciting. Now, I would be remiss without asking the obvious question. So let's say, for instance, because you have mentioned homes as well as different locations. So let's say, for instance, someone at a location hears this, or somebody at home hears this, et cetera, and they say to themselves, hey, you know what, I need to call these ladies up because I know that there's paranormal experiences that are happening, et cetera. How does someone know really that they need or want someone like you to visit per se? What does that even look like? Like, how does someone determine that?
Well, for majority of the people that contact us, they'll contact us mostly via email or by phone. And the first thing that they'll say is, don't think I'm crazy, but. And we don't. I mean, we will never think that anybody's crazy. What they are experiencing is absolutely what they're experiencing. So it really runs the gamut from I've been touched, or things have moved across the house, or I hear footsteps, or I hear voices. Can you come and conduct an investigation at my location? But it's interesting, a lot of people, they want so firmly to believe either that their house is haunted or something like that, that they really do skip around and not really look at the obvious. And for example, I say that because we investigated a business once. This gentleman was absolutely convinced that his location was haunted because his night vision video cameras kept going off and on during the night. And so he was convinced that it was paranormal that was causing it. So he called us in and we did the investigation, and the investigation that night, we weren't feeling anything. We weren't picking up anything on our equipment. And so we left some night vision video cameras in his business that night. And the next morning when we came back to collect those cameras, I asked him if there was paranormal activity that night. And he said, absolutely. It was crazy. The night vision video cameras kept going on and off. So I asked him for the timestamps, and I cross-referenced those to our night vision video cameras. And what I found was his storefront, which was a glass window, was running parallel to a road that had a high volume of U-turn traffic. So at night, the headlights of those turning cars would bounce into his establishment, hit a mirror in the back of the building, and bounce off his night vision video cameras, essentially blinding them to the point where they would turn off and turn on. And so I told him, I said, what you're experiencing isn't paranormal. It's absolutely environmental. So either change the mirror direction or change the night vision video camera direction, and I think this will stop. And it did. So that's really what we do when we go to these locations, is that we try to find something that's explainable first, and trying to really kind of debunk some of these experiences that people are having. Again, not to say that they're crazy or anything like that. It really is to say, let's find a plausible explanation first before we call it paranormal. And then when we control for all of those things, what we're left with is something that we can't explain. And so then we'll talk to the homeowner about what they want to do with that if we can't find an explanation of what's going on. And so that's really how we conduct a private investigation. But, when they first contact us, it is that they are feeling or experiencing something that they just can't explain.
Interesting. Now, as you mentioned, it sounds to me like a lot of these things are positive experiences. But have you ever found yourself in a situation or in a surroundings where things were somewhat more, I don't want to use satanic or evil per se, but maybe just bad feelings or something that you've been visited by that was far less than positive, let's say? Has that ever been something you've encountered more over than? Oh, okay.
And absolutely, and I'll tell you up front, I mean, I'm more scared of the living than I am of the dead in most of these places, because some of these locations, they're not in the greatest of areas. But, that being said, we when we do these investigations, we're working on the premise of the things that we're trying to communicate with at some point had a human existence, that they lived a life, they died, and for some reason they're still here and able to communicate with us. And so when we go into a location, that's what we're working with. Now, if you go to some place like a prison or a jail, obviously those people that were there weren't the greatest of people in life. So they're not going to magically become the greatest of people in death either. So to your question, when we experience something that I consider darker, I'm not calling it demonic. I'm just saying it's darker. It's that energy that we're feeling that is just not something that's light and airy. So we really feel that in prisons and jails and insane asylums for a good majority of the evidence that we found there. Those are the locations where we'll feel something and say, okay, this is heavy, this is dark, and in all honesty, we really don't mess with it, if that makes sense. We don't go in and try to provoke it. We don't go in and try to say, I'm not going to believe you're here unless you throw this chair across the room. That's really not how we operate. If we find that, if we start experiencing something like that, what we generally do is we'll leave a voice recorder in the room, we'll leave a night vision video camera in the room, and we'll just say, we're going to leave you to your space. We're not going to try to provoke you. We understand that this is your area. We're going to back off. And if you want to communicate with us, we're leaving these tools here. But otherwise, there's other locations that we can investigate on this property. And so really that's how we deal with it. And so to your question, yes, we have experienced things that I would consider darker, but it hasn't been anything that's been malicious towards us or anything demonic.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that, obviously, because most of us want to believe that spirits or ghosts or anyone that is in that paranormal realm is full of warmth and welcome and things like that. Of course, we want to believe that, certainly. Typically, how often do you get booked out? Say, for instance, it's now, almost April now. So what does your calendar look like? I mean, I'm guessing that people are calling you left, right, and sideways, like, my world's going insane right now. And especially with the world, the way things have been lately, God, we don't even know what the hell's going on from day to day. You know what I mean? So is this a service that you're, like, on the go 24/7?
Typically, yes. And if we're not on the go 24/7, we are reviewing audio and video footage from investigations. So, for example, I've got 4 investigations that we're still going through all of the audio and video footage that we capture. Because for us, we want to go through everything that we capture that night. So if we're at a location, say, for 10 hours, and I've got 10 voice recorders running and 10 night vision video cameras running, I'm watching 100 hours of audio and I'm watching 100 hours of video. So going through all of that is a very tedious process. So to your question, we've got pretty much an investigation, a commercial investigation, once a month throughout the rest of this year. We do have those speaking engagements that I mentioned. We will be doing a lot of traveling for some paracons as well. And then we do have some private residences that are on the calendar as well. So we really do stay busy with it, whether, like I said, either it's physically investigating or going through evidence review.
Holy mackerel, look at that. Goodness gracious. That's a whole lot to digest there. I thought my schedule was insanely busy. Goodness. Well, I guess my other question to you is this. So, for instance, moving forward here, let's say, for instance, this year you've got all this going on and the book comes out, etc. Somebody listens to this today and they say to themselves, all right, you know what, I really believe in this cause and obviously they could get swag if they wanted to. Do you take things like donations or grants or things like that, or how can people help to take some of the burden off of you to continue your work?
Well, honestly, and I appreciate you saying that, honestly, for us, if you buy a T-shirt or something, that is it's just a great contribution. We've produced several videos. I mean, we have 18 investigation episodes now. We've got 5 of what I call our landmark legends and lore episodes that are out on YouTube. And that's really a big help too, the YouTube subscriptions or the Facebook likes. For us, we have been asked why we don't accept Patreon, why we don't monetize our YouTube channel. And for me personally, and I've talked to my twin about this as well, for us personally, it really kind of gives a sense of you're putting forth evidence to get likes and subscriptions. And we just don't, and this is just for us personally, it's one of those things where we really don't want the appearance of we're finding these things because we want to like, because we want money. We would rather put something out there and get people to watch it based on its merit, based on the historical documentaries, based on, what we found that we feel is compelling, rather than putting forward something that is paid for. And that's, again, just a personal preference for us.
Okay, it just seemed logical to me because I was like, well, I can only imagine. I've seen some of these doohickers and get-ups, and I'm not technical, so I always say that about cameras and everything else. You're like a little bit of this, to me it's like, oh, just one of them little things and blah, blah, blah. But I can only imagine the amount of money and time and energy and, equipment that go into actually providing evidence. You need to be able to have all that stuff, and I can't imagine that it's not costly. I've seen it just for film sets. That's insane. So I'm like, more power to you, man. Gosh.
Well, again, and I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you going through our website and stuff as well. But really, if people want to support us, just we'd be happy to have you buy a T-shirt or a mask or something, or come out to some of our speaking engagements and buy tickets to that, because most of these speaking engagements, they are providing travel for us. And so just support us by buying tickets and coming to see us there. That would be a big help. But, for us, It really is a passion for history and travel and storytelling, and that's why we do this.
How wonderful is that? Listen to that. My goodness. Wow, young lady. That brings us almost to an hour that we've been talking. Wow. Every time I start my show, I was like, it flows very nicely, which I have to say I'm very impressed with. There are a few business things that I want to go over here for the folks that are listening in. First of all, our entire interview that we just did is going to be available in about 2 hours or so. And I'll send you a copy from Blog Talk Radio. I'll also send you a YouTube link because they all go to my YouTube channel as well. So you'll get a copy of that for one. Second of all, I want to read off the different places to be able to have folks find you, of course, should they need you for any given reason or want to support you or see where your next upcoming events are. The name of this, again, is Soul Sisters Paranormal. That's the name of the business. I've been speaking to Dr. Kristy Sumner, and that's Sumner is her last name. The website is www.soulsistersparanormal.com. They are also on YouTube. That's where all the different videos are, as well as Facebook with the same name, again, Soul Sisters Paranormal. They have a LinkedIn profile, and I don't want to forget to mention their partner, which is, of course, again, Ghost Biker Explorations, and that website is ghostbikerexp.wixsite.com/ghostbiker. Is there any other place or any upcoming events, appearances where people can come and see you?
Well, as I mentioned before, we'll be, for investigations, we'll be in Milwaukee in May, we'll be in Texas in June, and Ohio in August. But for speaking engagements, we'll be in New Mexico on October 3rd and 4th in Las Cruces. We'll be speaking at the Las Cruces Paracon. You can, go to our Facebook page for more information on that, or to the Las Cruces Paracon website. We'll also be in North Carolina in October at the Henry River Mill Village Booze and Brews. So if you want to support us there, you can come out and see us at Henry River Mill Village. Again, go to their website, and they'll have all that information. Hopefully it'll be up soon. And then on April 15th, I'll be speaking at the Arkansas State University Delta Symposium. That's an online symposium. So I'll have the link on our Facebook page. So if anybody wants to listen in on that, I'll be speaking on paranormal tourism and historic preservation. So that could be an interesting topic for people to look into. But other than that, Cindy, I just really appreciate your support of us and of Ghost Bikers. So, just thank you for this time today.
Oh, absolutely. And and of course, she has never been to my show before. You have not visited my show, but if you have listened and if you haven't, what I'm here to tell you is, before I let you go, there's always two final things that happen. First of all, there's always a surprise that comes on my show. You don't get you don't get off of my show without getting surprised at least once or twice. So one of the things that I looked at before we started the interview was, obviously you live in Florida. First of all, I'm disappointed because Michael and I, after four postponements, we're finally coming to Florida for our vacation in April. However, we're going to be in Fort Lauderdale, which I think is 3.5, 4 hours away from you. Damn. Okay, so that's problem number one, is we can't see in person there. So obviously you're coming to Milwaukee, so I already know where I'm crossing my fingers. She'll be like, yeah, we're hooking up for some kind of dinner or lunch or et cetera. But leave your creepy friends wherever. That's number one. Number two, I took a look at the different videos, and correct me, I just want to make a clarification before I talk about the other thing. Some of these videos appear to be a combination of, it's more black and white with some color in it, or they all color. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard because some of them seemed black and white to me, a good majority.
Well, what I try to do is I put the historical components in black and white, and then just kind of try to differentiate. That's just a style. And it's so funny you brought this up because it's been something that I've been wrestling with for the last couple of weeks. But it's just something that I've done on the videos to kind of say, this is the history behind it. And I put that history in black and white. So
gotcha.
A majority of the historical part will be in black and white, but the reality part of it, or the today's version, if you will be in color.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And I only ask that because it lends itself to the actual surprise here, which we're coming to right now. The reason I brought that up is because in April, as I talked about at the start of the hour, we have an all black and white film festival. So had all of your work been in complete black and white from start to finish, I could have actually screened it at the film festival because that's all black and white. However, I happen to have my own film festival where I don't need Michael to tell me, yeah, it's got to be black and white. My own film festival is color, black and white, the whole 9 yards. So I would find it to be quite the honor if you would allow me to screen your work in a block, meaning probably 2 to 3 different videos, because it's usually feature block is an hour or so. If you would allow me to have your work as a special screening at this year's film festival in late August, I would be very honored if you let me do that.
I would be honored.
This is so
I would
cool.
absolutely be honored. Wow, that is just amazing. And Cindy, I just can't thank you enough. That's huge. Thank you.
Of course, absolutely. Well, certainly, this sort of work is absolutely astonishing to a lot of us. The fact that you even choose to dedicate a portion of your life and what you make, etc., to doing something like this is just very impressive to myself. And of course, obviously, I'm a founder, so I know other festival founders. So I'm sure this won't be the only invitation you get to show your work. So there's that. And the only other thing that I can say to you outside of it, thank you so much for doing the work that you do, is just consider the idea of coming to my house, because like it or not, I've been saying for 2 years now, I got to call somebody. I mean, I'm not worried. I mean, in the beginning, I was worried, like, for the first couple of years that we were in my house. I've been here for 10 years. Like, we started having these subtle little things, like, the thing we'd have something fall off the toilet, or we would have a laptop that would turn off, or we would have a radio that turned off automatically, or things, would start to open. Now it's a little more subtle. Now you have, like, I would swear that there are noises and things and sounds. So I'm like, well, she was coming on the show today. So while you're here, if you maybe wanted to come and gander and maybe, I don't know, do whatever you do with those things that you do, that would be just wonderful too. You don't have to, but
absolutely.
I think there's somebody here. But that would be great.
I would absolutely love that, and thank you for that invitation. For us, and I'll just tell you as some of the advice that I give to other homeowners, really just acknowledge it. If you hear a noise, just say, hey, I know you're there. I recognize that you're here, and as long as you don't hurt me or hurt my space at all, you're welcome to be here. And because everybody, you go through life and you want to have that acknowledgement, right? That somebody notices you and acknowledges your existence. That's the same thing with spirits. So, but absolutely, if the invite is there, we'll absolutely take you up on that. And then when we're in Milwaukee in May, yes, we definitely need to meet up for dinner at some point.
Oh, yay. That would be absolutely wonderful. Yeah, because, too, like I said, it's not often that you come across people like yourself, and certainly when there's something that goes on like this, you always want to know. I mean, my suspicion is there are a few loved ones that are coming to see me. That's why it never scares us. But, I keep telling my teenagers, I'm like, yeah, we should probably find out what's going on. So this is all perfect timing. Absolutely, it was. But I am glad, because it was wonderful during the interview how you talked about, we're so open to film festivals, and all I could think was, well, you're about to be in one in a few months. You just don't know it. So there's a reason you meet somebody. So there you go. I cannot thank you enough for this time. I appreciate this. And luckily, my teenagers have been wonderful. They're on Easter break this week, so I literally squeezed this interview in before we have to clean out our basement today, or attic. So I can't thank you enough, Doctor, for everything
I really appreciate
you've done.
The time as well.
Oh, of course. I can't wait to meet you in person, of course. I'll send you the details, of course, on the festival and everything else and all that good stuff. But more importantly, good luck and be careful on your travels. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, dear. You too. Thank you. All right, folks. That was, again, Dr. Kristy. Last name, again, is Sumner. The name of their business is, again, called Soul Sisters Paranormal. One more time, the website is www.soulsistersparanormal.com. She's also on YouTube, on Facebook with the same name. She also has a LinkedIn profile. And again, her partner, who I'm sure undoubtedly I will be approaching for an interview, is Ghost Biker Explorations, and that is ghostbikerexp.wixsite.com/ghostbiker. So please go ahead and support all of their efforts. As she mentioned, attend the various festivals. Go ahead and check out our Facebook page and like it. Check out those videos, of course, and watch those and spread those and do what you can, of course, to help. Again, thanks so much to Kristy for coming on the show today. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I have 3 shows this week, so I will be back on here Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I believe Friday early afternoon as well at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. Thanks so much to all of you that listened in today. I'm off to spend some time with my kiddos, and I'll see you guys in a few days. Take care.